Thanks to 2K for sponsoring this video. Borderlands 4 is only a few months away, and thanks to 2K, we had the chance to go hands-on ahead of its release at a secret event with some massive names in the Borderlands space. We sent our team member Nas out to California to check everything out and report back, and surprisingly, the amount of time he had to play flew by, with only 90 minutes to check out a portion of the open world and roughly 30 minutes to tackle a vault encounter. All the creators there, ourselves included, agreed to share footage with each other so that you, the viewer, could get as clear a picture as possible of the game so far. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and this is our hands-on preview for Borderlands 4. Let me start by saying this. I believe Borderlands 4 will be the biggest game in the series, and that's largely due to the shift to the more open world style of game. If we look back to previous entries in the Borderlands franchise, the worlds could largely be considered connected canyons of content. What I mean by that is zones were largely linear in nature, with a bunch of optional side content as you progress through that zone. There were some things that crossed back and forth between zones, but by and large, it was relatively easy to just target down content in past games as you came across it. Borderlands 4 completely flips that dynamic, and it's something we think players are going to have to adjust for, especially if they're used to a more linear type of video game. Personally, open world is where we thrive, making sense of that chaos and charting a path through a game with a ton of optionality. During the hour and a half we had in a section of the open world, maybe 2 or 3 other creators actually finished a quest to completion. There were tons of side activities, secrets, mini-bosses, and more that would constantly give players that ooh, piece of candy effect. That's because pretty much everything, even content way above your character's level, is accessible to you. I think hardcore Borderlands fans will love this, but for more casual players, it's going to take some getting used to, but we do think it'll benefit the game in the long run. You also have to factor in the new gliding, grapple, and climbing mechanics, which absolutely elevate the game across multiple fronts, including quest design, combat encounters, and secret hunting. There was this entire quest where you had to fight off waves of enemies while positioning solar panels with your grapple that would redirect the laser and allow you to breach the base of a massive tower. You'd then have to parkour your way up the external parts of the tower using the grapple, glide, and climbing mechanics to adjust platforms and work your way up. Stuff like that just wasn't a thing in previous Borderlands games, and the vertical nature of this single quest alone really made the game feel more intricate. Hopefully, there are loads of these types of quests throughout the game that rely on clever manipulation of your available mechanics to interact with the strange and often zany world Gearbox has created. During our time with the game, we were able to check out 2 different Vault Hunters, Vex the Dark Siren, who's this kind of nuker summoner-based character, and Rafa, the Exo Soldier who can lean heavy into a melee, ranged, or hybrid-focused playstyle, using all sorts of digistructs his experimental exosuit can create. We had level 5 versions of each character for the open world portion of the preview so that we could pick our specialization and level up over that hour and a half. But we also had access to level 20 versions of each character for the Vault preview later on, and these were already pre-built for us, which allowed us to see 2 of the specializations in a much more progressed state. Thankfully, because everyone agreed to share their footage, we got a taste for nearly every specialization's abilities at a base level, and let me just say, point blank, the Exo Soldier's paths feel pretty cool, especially the Arc Knives and the Peacebreaker Cannon's paths. On one hand, you have an ability that forces a third-person perspective, so you can go absolutely ham on enemies with these giant energy blades that mark targets with every attack, compounding that damage for every mark an enemy already has. Even at low levels, these things can dish out some really solid damage and seem like a perfect setup for a super fun melee-based build. On the other hand, the Peacebreaker Cannons grant you autonomous shoulder-mounted kinetic cannons that pepper your target while still allowing you to use regular guns, and there are even nodes to give you infinite ammo while these are active. This clearly sets up the Exo Soldier as not only a contender for a ranged DPS monster, but one who could easily turn any kind of weapon OP. Vex, as expected, has a much different playstyle, and if you usually enjoy pet or summon-based builds, then you'll want to check her out. Her phase familiar specialization allows her to summon her spectral cat Trouble, who can specialize tanky, taunting enemies, dishing out critical hits, and spawning badass illusions of itself, or as a buffer, enhancing Vex in numerous ways while primarily staying out of combat. The other specialization everyone played around with was Dead Ringer, which allows Vex to spawn either a Spectre or a Reaper phase clone. These will lose health every second they're active, but match the damage type of whatever damage Vex is attuned to when they're spawned in. The Reaper minion fights in melee range but also taunts enemies, while the Spectre minion stays where it's spawned and deals gun damage. Overall, it was really cool to see how all of the different creators' playstyles differed across the two available characters, and proves that Borderlands 4 will still retain that build flexibility most players have come to enjoy from this series. We did also take a peek at the customization options for the Vault Hunters, since a lot of mission rewards some really unique cosmetics. In conjunction with the ability to dye and change up your overall patterns on your Vault Hunters, you can definitely turn them into characters you visually vibe with more, which I think is great if you aren't a fan of the overall initial look of these characters. Vex and Rafa were cool, and there's a lot of room to experiment once you expand their skills. But if there's one thing we know about Borderlands, it's that gunplay is king. During the open world portion of the game, because we were so under-leveled, we didn't really get to go peak Borderlands crazy. That is, until we swapped over to our level 20 pre-made characters and tackled some Primordial vault runs. And this is where things started to feel familiar, but also completely unique at the same time. Borderlands 4 features 8 different weapon manufacturers, 5 of which are returning from previous games, including Tediore and their quirky toss to reload feature, Malawan with their elemental specializations, Jacobs and their ability to shoot as fast and as precise as you can pull the trigger, Vladof with their high fire rate and even larger magazine capacity, and Torg, the masters of heavy-duty explosive weaponry. The 3 new manufacturers, all of which were eventually experienced by at least 1 or 2 creators in the room, Daedalus, which can incorporate multiple ammo types, Ripper, with their guns that ramp up to fully automatic, and Order, weapons that focus on precision and burst fire. The Vault proved to be a much more challenging location, as it should, and really showed how Borderlands 4 is trying to push the difficulty and replayability curve. We also got a taste of Inceptus, the primordial guardian of this specific Primordial Vault, and let me tell you, this was a genuinely good boss fight. There were a whole host of attacks to avoid, mechanics to trigger in order to deal significant damage to the boss, and even this cool hanging pod mechanic where we had to utilize our grapple to avoid an acid-covered floor. The kicker is these would rapidly lower after grappling to them, so you'd have to dance between gliding and re-grappling to work your way around the arena, avoiding damage all while dealing damage to the boss in the process. If all the bosses in the game show this level of detail and intricacy, alongside the ability to easily respawn and fight them again for dedicated loot drops, we potentially have one of the most enjoyable farming loops in a Borderlands title to date. I think it's also important to recognize that while we were progressing through the available content, the overall narrative and dialogue felt so much better than Borderlands 3. The few jokes we heard landed cleaner, dialogue is significantly less cringy and pop culture focused, and the premise of the people of this world rebelling against their tyrant overlords just feels like a more easy to digest fantasy story that has room to grow. Where the game does take another design shift is in the use of a compass over a minimap, alongside with Echo 4, a guide bot and a first for the Borderlands franchise. A missing minimap was something everyone at the event was almost unanimously wanting to see added back into the game, given its historical use and importance throughout the previous titles. Don't get me wrong, the compass was great at relaying important information such as quest objectives, markers, and more, but once you're conditioned to something so essential, it's hard to take that away. However, the main reason for the feedback is because a lot of encounters take advantage of the game's newfound verticality thanks to the enhanced movement systems, and in some instances you could have dozens of enemies at varying heights, and often all in the same direction. This would cause those red dots denoting enemies on your compass to essentially clump up into a big blob of red that results in unclear information to the player. It's something that seems so small in the grand scheme of things, but if it was a toggleable feature they could add into the game given the amount of time still remaining before the September release, we could see that going a long way with the community overall. Menus across the board have also been significantly modernized. Hardcore Borderlands fans might find the layout strikingly different from what they're used to, but honestly, we really enjoyed the sleek new design. It's all about the information hierarchy, and this is the best it's ever been. There was really only one anomaly, and that was with the weapons panels. The manufacturer of the gun, an important bit of information to know at a glance, and even more important now given the new parts system, just doesn't feel prominent enough. We would love to see it get a more stylized treatment towards the top of the frame, so it's one of the first things you see. Again, these are small potatoes, and the UI could change a dozen more times before launch, but it's worth mentioning as these things do factor in to a player's experience. After just a couple hours with the game, even though most of us were completely overwhelmed with how much was thrown at us and how quickly it all happened, we did start to see glimpses of Borderlands 4's evolution. How far will that go? We hope really far, but it's still too early to say with such little time actually spent with the full breadth of content the game has to offer. I will say, and I think this matters, Borderlands 4 does feel more like Borderlands 2 more than anything else Gearbox has created since then. To be clear, that is a great sign. Once again, thank you to 2K for sponsoring this video. Friends, we hope you enjoyed this special preview of Borderlands 4, and we'll have much more coming your way ahead of the game's September 12th release date. As always, drop us a like and remember to subscribe so you never miss a new video. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.